County Sheriff's Office. Today we're going to be giving you an update in the criminal investigation into the Alexander Mountain Fire. First, you're going to hear from Larimer County Sheriff John Fain about the state of the investigation, and then we will also hear from Acting Deputy Forest Supervisor Adam Bianchi. Sheriff Fain's name is spelled John, last name Feyen, and Acting Deputy Forest Supervisor's name is spelled Adam, last name Bianchi. We'll have time for some clarifying questions at the end. This is still an active and ongoing investigation, so we're not going to be able to provide a whole lot more than what's shared here. We will have a press release and booking photo that we'll send out at the conclusion of this, so you'll have those details as well. With that, I'll hand it off to Sheriff Fain.
Thank you all for joining me. It's good to see so many faces under different circumstances. It was just a few short 6 weeks ago that the view behind me was drastically different. We had columns of smoke, we had trees torching, we saw a constant aerial display of aircraft dropping retardant in water on a community, and we were evacuating members of the Larimer County community who were leaving their homes not knowing what they were going to return to when the fire was finally over. In the end, the Alexander Mountain Fire burned more than 9,600 acres, dozens of homes, some primary, some vacation, and lots of outbuildings were destroyed in the fire. And it literally scarred our community, both figuratively and literally, as you can see behind us. Today, I'm happy to share with you that through the joint investigative efforts of the Larimer County Sheriff's Office and the United States Forest Service, we have effected an arrest in the cause of the Alexander Mountain Fire. The suspect is a 49-year-old Loveland resident and former employee of the Sylvan Dale Ranch. The suspect's name is Jason Hobby. Investigators, during the course of the investigation, found evidence that before and during this fire, the suspect represented himself as law enforcement and as fire officials without any credentials. So he was impersonating both fire personnel and law enforcement personnel, and never having gone through any of the training. We also learned that on several occasions, Hobby stopped travelers in the area in a Chevrolet SUV that was made to look like a law enforcement vehicle, called people out on traffic stops and pointed weapons at them, falsely claiming that they were trespassing, and gained their information. Hobby also owns and operated a modified Ford vehicle that he modified to look like a fire response vehicle. He bypassed road closures to access restricted areas during the course of the Alexander Mountain Fire and represented himself as a wildland firefighter. Based on the evidence collected, investigators are concerned that Hobby may have falsely stopped other citizens in our community or other visitors to our community, and we are requesting folks that may have been stopped by him to reach out to the Larimer County Sheriff's Office with additional details. There's contact information in the press information that you're going to be given following this press conference. I am extremely grateful for the work of the personnel of the U.S. Forest Service and the Larimer County Sheriff's Office in solving this crime and starting the process of justice for all the victims. It would be remiss of me to not thank all of the area partners and the 530 fire personnel who fought the fire nonstop during the course of the fire over the 9 days, especially the initial responding agencies, the Glen Haven Volunteer Fire Department, my friend to the south, Boulder County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Curtis Johnson, and the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control, but especially the Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, who was with us from day one in helping us stop this fire. I cannot help but think that they made an enormous impact upon the outcome of the fire through their cooperation and partnership. I also appreciate the staff of the Sylvan Dale Ranch, who provided us a place on which to attack the fire, on which to set up our initial command posts, and to help us with the investigations that followed into the cause and origin of this fire. In closing, I have to say we have an amazing community here in Larimer County. I cannot begin to tell you the thanks and gratitude I have for all the businesses and the personnel who came together to support the efforts of the firefighters, the law enforcement personnel, our EMS partners, as well as the citizens impacted by the Alexander Mountain Fire. It is my pleasure to introduce Adam to you, who will say a few words as well. Adam?
Thanks, Sheriff. The Forest Service's thoughts continue to be with all those that were impacted by the Alexander Mountain Fire, but really grateful for the close collaboration with the Sheriff's Office through this entire investigation, as well as the response to the Alexander Mountain Fire. The federal investigation is continuing, and we will be in close partnership with the Sheriff's Office throughout this. And so we just want to reiterate our continued thanks and appreciation with the Sheriff's Office as well as the rest of the community as we continue with the investigation. Thank you.
Sheriff,
Yes.
how did he allegedly start this fire?
So I can't go into a whole lot of details, but we found evidence of a fire ring on top of the Alexander Mountain, and the fire escaped from the fire ring.
Was this intentional?
That again, I can't speak to. We had the opportunity to interview Mr. Hobby, but due to the ongoing prosecution, I can't tell you what he said during that interview.
How long ago was he an employee at Sylvan Dale?
Up until just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, when he was identified initially as a suspect during the course of the investigation, Sylvan Dale at that point terminated his employment with them.
And was it Sylvan Dale that reached out to you as a potential suspect, or was it somebody else that led you to him?
So what led us to him was just good old-fashioned plain police work. We knew where the point of origin was, so we went up there to view what we could find and collect the evidence with the Forest Service and our investigators. Several arson investigators were up there. And from there, it's like, who saw the fire first? And so we began interviewing people. Not technology, just good old-fashioned gumshoe detective work. And from that, we had the opportunity to identify him as a suspect. And once we followed that lead and let the evidence take us where it took us, we were able to solidify that information.
And did he live in the area over here, or did he live in sort of main town Loveland?
He was living in Sylvan Dale property at the time of his employment.
Was he a wrangler, a cook? What was he there?
I don't really know exactly what his title was. He did a variety of duties on there. He, at one point, identified himself as a fire manager. So I don't know exactly what his details
And how long
were.
was he employed?
That I don't know either. You have to ask Sylvan Dale that.
Sheriff, did people reach out to you expressing concerns that they had been stopped by someone, that you mentioned possibly pointed a firearm or a weapon of some sort?
So we did, in the course of the investigation, talk to a couple of people who were confronted by him in the course of this. We think that there may be more, like we talked about. So that's why we're hoping that more people, if they truly were stopped by him, reach out to us so we can collect their information.
Did you talk actions that kind of started the suspicions around him that there was somebody out there doing this?
That was a corollary to the initial fire investigation. So that evolved out of the initial investigation.
So how quickly after this fire started did he allegedly start stopping people and impersonating an officer? Was it immediate or?
Nope. So that was not contiguous. The fact that he had stopped people became evident in the course of the fire investigation, but it happened months prior to the fire. So it wasn't like the fire started, he started the fire, people were coming on the property, he was stopping them. He had stopped them weeks and months beforehand.
So in addition to the arson, would that be a charge?
So there are yes.
And that, on his court record, it says that it's false imprisonment by force of 12 plus hours. Is that sort of a cumulative of multiple different people, or is that one person?
So I'm unaware of the 12 plus hours, but the false imprisonment is just like if I pull you over at a traffic stop and hold you, I've detained you. I have legal justification as a peace officer. If you pull somebody over and stop them inappropriately, then you've imprisoned them. So that's why it's called false imprisonment versus kidnapping.
Do we know how long he's had these modified vehicles?
I don't know that for certain. That's a good question, but I don't know that for sure.
Do we know if he's from the Loveland area? Meaning not just his work at Sylvan Dale, but is he from this area?
He's originally from his criminal history, he's from California. He's had several arrests in California.
And are there any other suspects at this point that the Sheriff's Office is looking into as a co-defendant, a possible co-defendant in this?
Not that I'm aware of. Mr. Hobby, or suspect Hobby, is the only individual at this point that we're evaluating.
Is he in jail?
He is in jail. Yes, he was arrested late yesterday afternoon. He's got 130 bond advisements today. You'll get a booking photo as soon as we're all done here today. So.
And do you know if he pulled anybody over or acted as a peace officer at all after the fire or just before?
I am unaware of any time that he pulled somebody over after the fire or during the fire, just before. Good question.
We've got time for maybe one or two more, again, clarifying questions. I know there's a lot of information that people still want, and as that becomes available, we will share it, but just a couple more if you have any clarifying questions.
The vehicles, plural, did they have markings on them, or was it just the lights? Can you just describe some of that for us?
So, for example, there's a social media. He has a social media account, right? he has that fire vehicle on a social media account, and it looks like what we would use, or a fire department would use for a wildland fire. It's a four-wheel drive pickup truck. It has striping on it. There is emblems on it that says Twin Buttes Fire Protection District or Twin Buttes Fire Department on there. And from our research and our investigations, we cannot identify a Twin Buttes Fire Department anywhere. He had fire gear that also had those emblems on it. It had hose reels, it had drip cans, it looked like it was hard to tell, to the point where he was able to pass through inappropriately roadblocks to get onto the fire scene.
Did this happen on 34? These stops, did they happen on 34, or was it all on Sylvan Dale property?
To our information, it happened on the Sylvan Dale property and up on the Northern Colorado Water District property of the Hanson Feeder Canal.
Yeah, the canal.
Yep.
Okay.
So you hear about stories of people intentionally starting something so that they can then rush to the rescue, be a part of this effort afterwards. Is there any indication that that's what happened here?
And that is purely speculation on our part that was what the intent was. He did not share why the intent happened. But in Colorado law, even if it was a careless act that got out of control, it is still chargeable as arson. So I don't know if it was an intentional act or a careless act on his part.
But he did go to the fire scene dressed in gear, driving his truck.
After the fire started, yes. Yes.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you all so much for coming out today.